The wind howled through the trees like a warning. Jace stood at the window, watching the dark clouds gather above the forest. This planet had strange weather. Storms came fast and loud, lightning cracked sideways, and the rain fell like it had. Wait, he lived in a small wooden shelter at the edge of the alien village. Just far enough to have peace, but close enough to see others when needed. Today, the village was quiet, too quiet. Everyone seemed to stay inside, shutters locked, doors sealed, and even the market had closed early. Jace had heard something earlier, whispers from passing merchants, their eyes wide with concern. "She's in heat again," one of them had said softly, glancing toward the eastern hill. "Tell the human boy not to open his door." Jace didn't pay much attention. They always said strange things about the alien sisters. He had met them both a few times. The older one was strict and proud, but the younger one, Leary, was different. She didn't talk much, always kept her eyes down, and walked like she didn't belong here. Jace once gave her a fruit from Earth, and she had stared at it like it was magic, then smiled softly before walking away. After that, they never spoke again. He shook his head, now sitting on the floor near the fire, trying to ignore the cold wind sneaking under the door. Suddenly, a loud knock. He looked up, heart skipping a beat. Another knock, slower this time, almost like a question. He stood up and walked toward the door, boots crunching softly on the wooden floor. "Who is it?" he called, but there was no answer. He opened the door just a crack and saw her, Leary, standing barefoot in the rain, soaked from head to toe, her thin dress clinging to her strange glowing skin. Her eyes were brighter than he remembered, almost shining blue, and her lips were trembling. "Leary?" he whispered, shocked. "What are you doing out here?" She didn't answer, just took one step forward, rain dripping from her hair. Instinct made him step back, and she stepped in, her bare feet making wet marks on the floor. He closed the door behind her slowly, unsure what to do. "You'll catch a fever like that," he said, grabbing a dry blanket and wrapping it around her. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, shivering. Eyes locked on him, Jace looked around awkwardly, trying not to panic. "Do you want tea or food?" he asked, voice nervous. Still no answer. She tilted her head slightly, as if hearing a sound he couldn't, then slowly walked toward the fire, sitting beside it without a word. The blanket slid down a little, revealing the edge of a glowing mark near her collarbone. Jace looked away, unsure if he should even be seeing that. He tried to distract himself, boiling water, setting out a cup. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something else. He had heard stories about what happens when an alien female enters heat. It wasn't just biology, they said. It was like instinct took control. Some said it was dangerous, others said it was beautiful, but all agreed humans should not get involved. And now she was in his home, sitting by his fire, not saying a word, and watching him. The cup of tea shook in his hand as he handed it to her. Her fingers touched his as she took it, and the heat in her skin surprised him. She drank slowly, eyes never leaving his. Jace sat across from her, heart pounding. He opened his mouth to speak, but she beat him to it. "I smelled you," she whispered, her voice like the wind outside. He froze. "What?" he asked softly. "I smelled you," she said again. From far away, there was a long silence, only broken by the crackling fire. "I shouldn't be here," she said, looking down. "But I couldn't help it." Jace didn't know what to do. Say his instincts screamed for him to leave, but his legs wouldn't move. The storm outside grew louder, wind slamming against the walls. But inside the room, it was quiet, too quiet, and the door behind them, the one he thought he had closed, was still slightly open. The rain had stopped, but the silence inside the room felt heavier than before. Jace stood frozen, unsure if he should speak or move. Leary sat by the fire, the blanket slipping off her shoulder, steam rising from her damp skin like gentle smoke. She didn't blink much, didn't shift her gaze, just looked at him as if studying every breath he took. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving only the soft sound of dripping water from the roof. Inside, the firelight flickered across her glowing skin, the mark near her collarbone pulsing gently, almost like it had a heartbeat of its own. Jace glanced toward the door, still ajar, and quietly walked over to close it, but he paused when he saw muddy footprints. Not just hers. There were 2 sets. He turned around quickly, heart pounding. But there was no one else, only her, and she was still watching him. I locked the door, he whispered more to himself than her. I swear I did. She stood slowly, the blanket falling to the floor, revealing her strange alien dress clinging to her form like a second skin. You didn't lock it, she said softly. You left it open. Jace didn't understand, but something in her voice made his skin crawl in a way he couldn't explain. He moved to the table, trying to act normal, trying to control the unease crawling up his back. I'll get you some dry clothes, he said, fumbling through a storage crate, pulling out an old human shirt, oversized and clean. He handed it to her without looking. She took it gently, then stepped behind the curtain that separated the sleeping area. Jace exhaled slowly, trying to calm himself. This wasn't right. Something about her presence felt too sharp, like a blade pressed gently against the skin. He remembered the messages from earlier, the warning from one of the village traders. Don't let her near you when her eyes glow, he had said. It means the heat is strong, and she can't stop herself. But no one ever explained what exactly that meant. Behind the curtain, he heard her breathing a bit too fast, a bit too deep. Then silence. He waited, unsure, until she finally stepped out, wearing his shirt, her damp hair falling around her shoulders. The shirt was large on her, but she didn't seem to care. She stood close, too close, and he noticed her skin had stopped glowing. But her eyes were even brighter now. I don't want to hurt you, she said softly, but I don't know how to stop. What do you mean? He asked carefully. She hesitated, then looked down at her hands. My kind. When we enter this time, we need connection, she said. Real connection, or the fever burns us from inside. Jace took a step back. What kind of connection? Leary shook her head, her voice almost shaking. Not like your human mating. It's deeper. It's something shared in the mind, the soul. He sat down slowly, trying to understand, trying not to panic. Then why come here? Why me? He asked. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, he saw something soft behind the glow. Because when you gave me that fruit, she said quietly, you didn't ask for anything back, not even words. Jace remembered that day. How simple it was, just a small gesture, but to her, maybe it meant something more. She stepped closer, and he could feel the warmth of her body again, not hot, but comforting, like standing near a sunlit window. Just let me stay, she whispered. Just tonight. He nodded slowly, not sure why, not sure what was happening inside him. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was loneliness. She sat beside him, her shoulder brushing his, and for a long time, neither of them said anything. The fire burned low, and the room grew darker, but outside, in the wet grass near the forest line, something else watched them. Quietly, blinking once before vanishing into the trees. And inside the cabin, the door creaked again, just a little, as if the wind remembered how it was left open. His cum device flashed blue in the dark, but Jace didn't notice it at first. Leary had fallen asleep beside the fire, curled like a cat, breathing softly, skin calm and no longer glowing, for the first time in hours. The silence felt peaceful, but then the device beeped again, louder this time. Jace looked at it with a tired sigh and picked it up, rubbing his eyes. The message was short, sharp, and made his stomach twist. If she came to you, don't stay close. She's not herself right now. Get out. It was from her sister. Jace slowly turned his head and looked at Leary, still asleep, still peaceful. But now he noticed small things he hadn't before. The way her fingers twitched, the quiet humming sound in her throat, and the faint shimmer returning to her skin. He took a deep breath and stood up slowly, trying not to make a sound. He moved to the window and looked outside. Scanning the tree line, something was wrong out there too. The usual glowing bugs that floated above the grass were gone. The animals were quiet, and the shadows felt heavier than they should. He backed away and turned toward the door, thinking maybe he could go out for just a minute, breathe, clear his head, but a soft voice behind him stopped him cold. "Don't leave," she said, still lying down. Eyes now open and glowing again, her voice was calm, but not like before. It felt layered, like something else was speaking through her. "I just need to breathe," Jay said gently. "Just for a second." She sat up slowly, tilting her head, like she was listening to something far away. "You're afraid of me now," she whispered. Jace didn't reply. Leary stood. The human shirt she wore now shifted in color slightly where it touched her skin, absorbing her energy. "My sister always said humans can't handle it," she said softly, stepping toward him. "That we break them." Jace held up a hand. "You're not going to break me. Then why are you shaking?" she asked, her voice now echoing slightly. He looked at his hand, surprised to see his fingers trembling. "I don't know," he said quietly. "Maybe because I don't understand what's happening." Leary stopped just a step away from him, her glowing eyes looking deep into his. "It's the pull," she whispered. "When I enter this state, I pull toward someone who made me feel safe." "Why me?" he asked, barely able to speak. "You didn't laugh when I dropped my market basket," she said. "You didn't flinch when you saw my scars." She reached for his hand slowly, carefully, like touching something fragile. "When you gave me that fruit, I tasted kindness," she whispered. "Now it's the only thing I crave." Jace didn't pull away, but he didn't move closer either. "Your sister sent a warning," he said softly. Leary nodded. "Because she's afraid." "Afraid of what you'll do to me?" "No," she said, her voice now almost sad. "Afraid of what I'll feel for you." He felt the air thicken between them, like something was pulling their hearts closer. Something invisible and strong. Suddenly, the room pulsed, literally, as if the walls breathed for a second. Jace blinked, unsure if he imagined it. Leary gasped and staggered back, clutching her chest. "What's happening?" he asked, stepping toward her. "I'm fighting it," she said through gritted teeth. "I don't want to take from you." "Not like this." Her legs gave out and she fell to her knees, breathing fast, eyes wide with panic. Jace knelt beside her, unsure what to do. "What do I do?" he asked, voice breaking. She looked up at him with glowing eyes and whispered, "Just talk to me. Keep me here. Keep me me." So he did. He told her about Earth, about the rivers and snow, about warm food and silly songs. And while he spoke, her body slowly calmed. But outside, deep in the shadows of the forest, something else was watching, something with the same glow in its eyes. And it was getting closer. The lights inside the cabin flickered once, then dimmed. Jace looked up at the ceiling, confused. The fire still burned, but something felt off in the air. It wasn't just the power, it was the pressure. The same kind of pressure you feel just before a storm hits, except this time, it was inside the room. Leary lay curled on the floor, her skin no longer glowing, her breathing shallow, like someone recovering from a deep fever. She looked fragile now, small, almost human. Jace sat nearby, not sure if he should speak or stay silent. He had stayed up all night, talking to her, holding her hand when her body shook, whispering things just to distract her. And it worked, at least for now, but something was still wrong. He kept remembering that strange pulse from the night before, the one that made the walls breathe. That wasn't in his imagination. He stood slowly and walked to the window, parting the curtain just enough to peek outside. The forest was still. Too still. No birds, no night creatures, not even wind. And there, just at the edge of the trees, a figure stood, not moving, not blinking, just watching. It looked like Leary. Or maybe something like her, but taller and with brighter eyes. Jace stepped back from the window, his heart racing. He turned to wake her, but she was already sitting up, her head tilted toward the window like she had heard something. "They found me," she whispered, voice hollow. "Who?" Jace asked, though he already felt the answer deep in his bones. "My kind," she said, standing slowly. "The ones who guard the cycle. They come when someone breaks the rule." "What rule?" "No bonding during heat without approval," she said. "No human contact. Ever." She looked at him then, and her eyes were full of fear, not for herself, but for him. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said. "But they won't care." Jace didn't speak. He was already grabbing his coat, boots, his small emergency bag. "We can run," he said. "We'll take the back path toward the old canyon." Leary shook her head. "You don't understand. They don't chase. They call." Jace was about to argue when a sound cut through the air. A low hum, deep and strange, like a flute made of bones. It came from the woods, and it wasn't loud, but it made every nerve in his body tighten. Leary dropped to her knees, hands over her ears, eyes wide in panic. "No, no, no," she whispered. "They're trying to pull me back." Jace rushed to her, kneeling beside her, unsure what to do. "Stay with me," he whispered, grabbing her hands. "Focus on me." "I can't," she said, trembling. "They're in my blood, Jace. They can make me forget." "Then let's make you remember," he said. "Tell me something from Earth. Tell me the fruit I gave you. What color was it?" She struggled, breathing hard, sweat dripping from her forehead. "Red," she stuttered. "It was red and sweet and warm from your hand." The hum grew louder outside, but her breathing slowed. She clung to his arms like a drowning person clings to driftwood. Then her body lit up again, this time not in pain, but in choice. A flash of blue shot from her chest like a shield, spreading through the room, pushing the sound away. Outside, the glowing figure stepped back, confused. Leary stood on shaking legs, holding Jace's hand, her voice stronger now. "I'm not going with you," she shouted toward the window. "I chose him." The air crackled, and the hum vanished in an instant. Silence returned, thick and heavy. Leary collapsed again, and Jace caught her in his arms. Her body was burning up again, not like before, but something deeper. "Leary," he said, holding her close. "What's happening now?" She opened her eyes slowly, her voice weak. "The heat is almost over," she said, "but it's not gone. I still need you." Then she passed out, the blue light fading with her breath, and outside, in the empty woods, the watchers were no longer standing, they had knelt. Jace didn't notice at first, not until the heat from Leary's skin began to warm the room more than the fire ever could. She lay in his bed, body still, breathing steady, but something shimmered beneath her skin like stars trapped underwater. Jace had placed wet claws on her forehead, her neck, and even her wrists, but they dried within minutes. It wasn't working anymore. He sat beside her, his hand hovering above her chest, unsure if he should touch her again. Earlier, when she was collapsing, her body had pulled something from him, energy, maybe emotion, something invisible but powerful. He remembered her words, whispered just before she lost consciousness. "I still need you." But what did that mean? Outside, it was still night, but the sky had turned a strange violet color, like the planet itself was holding its breath. The forest remained silent, and Jace could feel eyes watching from somewhere. But no one moved, not even the wind. Then Leary's eyes opened, slowly. She didn't move, just stared at the ceiling with a strange peace on her face. "I dreamed of Earth," she whispered, her voice weak but calm. "Your mountains, your skies, your trees." Jace leaned closer, his voice soft. "Do you want to see them one day?" Leary nodded faintly. "If I survive this, you will," he said firmly. "I'll make sure of it." She turned her head toward him, and their eyes locked again. "It's not just fever anymore," she said. "It's fusion." Jace blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" "My kind. When we bond during the heat, Our body starts copying the pattern of the other, mixing instinct with memory. Her fingers reached for his hand and gently placed it on her chest, right over her heart. It needs you to calm down, she whispered, your touch, your voice, your will. Jace hesitated only for a second, then kept his hand there, feeling the heat under her skin. A pulse moved beneath his palm, not just her heartbeat, but something else. It pushed against him, then pulled gently, like it was testing him. His vision blurred for a moment, and suddenly he saw flashes her memories, images not his own. A silver forest under a blue moon, a glowing waterfall, her as a child chasing floating lights. Then pain, loneliness, the cold pressure of tradition. He gasped and pulled back, but Leary held his wrist firmly. It won't hurt you, she said, but it will know if you're real. Jace swallowed hard, forcing himself to relax, letting her body pull him into its rhythm. The glowing marks on her skin brightened for a moment, then slowly began to fade. Leary sighed, her body sinking deeper into the bed, her skin returning to a soft, normal tone. It's working, she whispered. You're sinking with me. Jace looked down at her, confused and amazed. He felt tired, but not in a bad way, more like his energy was being gently shared, not stolen. And in that moment, something deep clicked inside him. He didn't want to run, didn't want her to leave. Whatever this was, it wasn't just survival anymore. It was connection. Leary blinked slowly, eyes fluttering as she fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. Jace stayed beside her, watching over her, not as a stranger, but as something more. Morning light began to touch the edge of the sky, soft and orange, and for the first time, the birds began to sing again. But far from the cabin, on a cliff hidden by clouds, a tall figure in ceremonial robes stood silently, watching the horizon, sensing the change in the bond. The watcher turned slowly and whispered to the wind, he's not just helping her. The voice said, he's becoming one of us. Asterisk. The morning sun broke through the window, casting long shadows across the room. Jace woke slowly, the weight of the night pressing softly on his chest. Leary was already awake, sitting by the fire, her eyes calm but bright. She looked different, now not just calm, but stronger, as if the heat inside her had finally settled. She smiled faintly when she saw him stirring, a quiet warmth spreading through the room. I didn't expect you to stay, she said softly. Most humans run away. Jace rubbed his eyes and sat up. I couldn't leave you when you needed me. Leary stood and walked over, her steps sure and steady. I was supposed to mate with one of my people, she said. A warrior strong and fierce. But I chose you instead. Jace blinked, surprised by her words. Why me? She looked away, her cheeks tinting a soft pink. Because you showed kindness without fear. Because your heart is different. He reached out hesitantly, touching her hand, feeling the steady pulse beneath her skin. Her eyes met his, shining with a mix of hope and fear. My people won't understand, she whispered. They expect tradition, not this. Connection. Jace nodded slowly. Then we'll make our own path. Leary's smile grew, a spark lighting up her face. I want to learn your world, she said. Your stories, your songs, your laughter. And I want to protect you, he replied, voice steady. No matter what comes. Outside, the wind stirred the leaves gently, carrying the scent of rain and wildflowers. The door remained wide open now, not by accident, but by choice. Because some doors are meant to stay open for new beginnings, for unexpected bonds, for hope. Together, they stood at the threshold, ready to face whatever the universe had planned next. Asterisk. The stars were out early that evening, twinkling above the forest like they had come just to watch. Jace stood outside the cabin, leaning against the old wooden railing, staring up in silence. Behind him, the door was still open, and soft light spilled out from inside, warm, golden, welcoming. It had been a week since the fever broke. Leary had not left. She moved through his space like she had always belonged, and yet every small thing she did felt new, like she was learning how to be near him again and again. She cooked strange alien roots over his stove and watched old Earth documentaries with wide, curious eyes, and she laughed now, often, like music that made Jace forget all the rules the universe had once tried to press on them. Tonight felt different though, heavier, as if something waited just beyond the trees. Leary stepped out onto the front porch quietly, wearing the same human shirt he had given her that rainy night, now dry and faded. Her hair glowed softly in the starlight, and her voice was a whisper. "They're coming," she said. No fear in her voice, just truth. Jace turned to face her, heart steady. "Your people?" She nodded. "They want to see if I've gone too far." He didn't ask what too far meant. He already knew. But Leary stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest, right where his heartbeat lived. "They'll see this," she said. "And they'll understand." Before he could ask what she meant, a humming filled the air, not loud, but deep, ancient, powerful, from the sky. Small orbs of blue light drifted down like snow, surrounding the cabin in a soft ring. Out of the woods came 3 robed figures, tall, graceful, eyes glowing like Leary's once had. They didn't speak, only observed, their expressions unreadable. Leary stepped forward, standing between them and Jace, her voice clear. "I did not break," she said. "I transformed." The tallest figure blinked slowly, then raised a long, slender hand toward Jace. He felt something scan through him, not painful, but deep, as if it searched inside his soul for something only they understood. Then the figure turned to Leary and bowed, not low, but enough. "You bonded outside of order," it said in a strange voice, layered and soft. "Yet your flame remains stable." Leary stood tall, hand still gripping Jace's. "Because it was real," she replied, not commanded. There was a pause, then the figure stepped back, vanishing into the mist without another word. The lights faded, the air cleared, and the stars above blinked even brighter. Jace exhaled, not realizing until now that he'd been holding his breath. "So, that's it?" he asked, voice shaking with relief. Leary turned to him, smiling gently. "They won't come again," she said. "They saw your heart." Jace laughed under his breath. "And they didn't run away." "No," she said, resting her head against his shoulder. "They bowed to it." He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close as the cool night settled in. The universe was wide, strange, and often cruel. But for now, here on this quiet world, a human and an alien girl had rewritten one small piece of it, together. The door behind them stayed open, just as it had on the very first night. Only now, it wasn't an accident, it was an invitation.